Welcome back to another episode of Video Game Food in Real Life. Today I'll be making the birthday cake from Animal Crossing New Horizons, both the chocolate buttercream and the strawberry buttercream variations. This year for my birthday, I decided to tackle making my own birthday cake as well as a birthday cake for my beloved friend, and I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get started. For the cake itself, I choose to use some box cake mix just to save time, and on the back of the cake mix, you'll see you need water and oil. But you could also use milk and butter instead of that. So add that into a bowl, and I'm also choosing to add in a little bit of instant espresso because it will help deepen the chocolate flavor. Then you add in 2 tablespoons of water, give that a good mix until it's all dissolved. And for extra chocolatey flavor, I'm adding in a 1/4 cup of Hershey's dark cocoa powder, followed along with 3 tablespoons of water. This is how you bloom the cocoa. Mix that all together. Once it's completely smooth and mixed, I'm going to set that aside and we're going to continue making the rest of the cake. So instead of water, I chose to use milk because it'll give them richer flavor, and I added in a 1/2 cup of vegetable oil and the 3 eggs per the instructions on the box. In hindsight, I should have just put it all into the bowl in the first place, but I didn't, so I'm just transferring to a bowl. That way I can whisk the eggs and everything together until fully combined. Then add your liquid ingredients into your dry cake mix. Now you're just going to whisk everything together until it's fully combined and super smooth. You don't want any clumps in this. Then add in that cocoa powder you bloomed earlier. And again, whisk until fully smooth. We'll be baking these in round 9-inch cake pans. To prep the pans, make sure you butter the bottoms and flour them to make sure the cakes come out and they don't stick. And for an extra layer of protection, I like to put in a parchment circle as well. This way, you'll guarantee having a quick release from the cake pan and nothing sticks to the bottom. Divide the batter evenly between 2 prepped cake pans. You'll end up with 2 9-inch cake rounds. I'm going to have more in the video because I'm making 2 cakes. To bake them, we're going to bake them at 350 degrees for 25 minutes, then let it cool completely on a wire rack. Once your cakes have completely cooled, we're going to cut them in half as evenly as you can. I'm using a serrated knife that's long enough to cut through the entire cake. As you can see, I'm also cutting it in a circular motion, that way I guarantee myself everything is level. I wish my knife was a little bit longer so I didn't have to do that, but ta-da! It was perfect, everything is even sized, and we're good to go. Now to make the heart-shaped cake, oh boy, I was so nervous. This was my first time. I don't have a heart-shaped cake pan, and I didn't want to risk cutting the cake round, so I just made a heart out of parchment paper, and now I'm taking a paring knife and using it to trim away the excess cake to make the heart shape. I did this on 4 layers of cake, and remember, I have 4 layers because I cut 2 cake rounds in half. Personally, I like thinner layers in my cakes, especially if I want to taste everything else I'm putting them in, and that's why I cut the cake rounds in half. You don't have to do that, you can make this a thicker cake by keeping the cake rounds intact. But by doing so, you save yourself some time too, and you end up with 4 layers instead of just 2. And ta-da! Here is your heart-shaped cake layer. Now let's go make the whipped ganache filling. For the filling, you're going to need 1 cup of heavy cream microwaved until just hot to the touch, and then add in 3 ounces of 60% cocoa. I'm using Ghirardelli, and you're just going to mix it until it's fully smooth. Once it's fully smooth and luscious and delicious, you're going to set it into the fridge and let it chill until completely cold. Took me about 2 hours. Now we're going to add your cold ganache into a stand mixer. You can also use an electric hand mixer. You're going to want to use the whisk attachment, put it all the way to the highest speed, that's 10 for me, and whisk until it turns into a thick chocolate mousse. Here's a close-up of what your consistency should look like. Keep the whipped ganache at room temperature as you're stacking your cakes. And now let's go make the chocolate buttercream. You're going to need 3 cups of unsalted butter softened at room temperature. Then add in 2.5 cups of powdered sugar. And here's a quick tip, wrap your stand mixer in plastic wrap when mixing so it doesn't make a mess everywhere. Then add in a 1/2 cup of cocoa powder I'm using the same cocoa powder I used before, the Hershey's dark one, and I didn't realize I needed a whole half cup. I only added in 4th cup first, so I added that second, then followed in with some vanilla, let it blend all together, and lastly you're adding in about 3 tablespoons of heavy cream. Leave the buttercream at room temperature while we make the strawberry flavored one. Take another 3 cups of unsalted butter softened at room temperature, then add in 2.5 cups of powdered sugar. Then add in a splash of vanilla, no more than 1 teaspoon, and mix until smooth using the paddle attachment. After your butter is nice, soft, and fluffy, we're going to be adding in freeze-dried strawberries for flavor and for color. I use an entire bag, which is 1 ounce of freeze-dried strawberries blitzed together in the food processor, added it to my buttercream, and mixed it. Once it's smooth and fully mixed, I used a 1/3 cup of homemade strawberry jam and added that into the frosting as well. This turned out so good, you guys. It was super vibrant and fresh and tasted like fresh strawberries. Here's a close-up of what the buttercream looks like. And now let's assemble the cakes. Just a warning that this part of the process takes the longest time, and if you think the normal cake round takes forever, wait until we get to the heart-shaped cake. But I digress. Start by taking a cake board, placing down some buttercream. This way it'll hold your cake round in place. Then put your cake round on top, followed by buttercream, and use a palette knife or spatula to spread it out evenly. Once you feel good about your layer, you're going to take sliced strawberries and place them onto the cake. I like to push them down a little bit into the frosting so they stay put, because now we're going to add in the whipped ganache and spread it all over the tops of the strawberries. Once that's done, you're going to top it with another cake layer and repeat the whole process. The next few minutes of this video is just me going over each layer of the cake. Remember, it's cake, buttercream, strawberries, whipped ganache, and then cake. And you redo this with all 4 layers. And again, you have 4 layers because we cut 2 cake rounds in half. Feel free to skip ahead to 7 minutes and 44 seconds if you want to skip this montage. I will have created a chapter option too, so you can just click that chapter. But for my visual learners, this is the montage for every single layer of the cake assembly. Once you're completely done assembling the cake, we're going to crumb coat the entire cake, then place it into the fridge. I like to refrigerate my cakes after crumb coating overnight so they're completely solid, but if you don't have the time, you can also just leave it in the fridge for 2 hours. After the crumb coat, I did put another layer of buttercream before I started piping. I'm just piping some rosettes using a star tip. This is I believe it's Wilton number 10. It was a school issued one from when I was in culinary school, and I did buy another one at Michael's, and I believe it was also Wilton, or it could have been Atco. Yeah, those are the 2 brands that I love to use the most. They're sustainable and durable. Halfway through piping, I realized I created too many rosettes because the Animal Crossing version only has 5, and well, I ended up with 9, but we're just gonna go with it because I thought it was pretty. And so here's the final rosette I'm doing. And now I'm going to top them with some pre-washed strawberries. I did hull them, so I just cut out the little stems and the inside white part. And it creates a little hollow strawberry so it won't weigh down on the cake. And here we go, the chocolate buttercream Animal Crossing New Horizons birthday cake. Didn't have enough chocolate to make my own happy birthday sign, so I bought these really cool candles that just spell out happy birthday. Here's one finalized look, and now we're going to get into assembling the heart-shaped cake. The heart-shaped cake took me, oh my god, it took me like 6 hours total. Just because I've never made a shaped cake before like this, and I did kind of mess up my cake layers when I cut them, so I didn't cut them super evenly. And for this one, my friend Cleo loves chocolate, so I made sure I had extra whipped ganache. The whipped ganache ratio is just 1 cup of heavy cream to 8 ounces of chocolate. All I did was double that. Here is a montage of me stacking, assembling, spreading, putting in the strawberries, and you can see right now my cake layers aren't even, so I had to use a lot more ganache and a lot more buttercream. But my one recipe for the strawberry buttercream was enough. So the whipped ganache, I ended up doubling the recipe, which gave me about 2.5 cups of whipped ganache. And then I did put it in the fridge overnight, just the same as my other cake, because I made it at the same time. Now this montage again is just crumb coating it with the strawberry buttercream. I did put it back in the fridge to firm up for at least 40 minutes because this was like already 2:30 a.m. at this point and I was so tired. So continuing this and letting it go, and yeah, I wanted to include like all of the footage because I'm just so proud of this cake. I know it's not the best and I'm nowhere near as talented as all those baking influencers online or the cake decorators, and I just have so much respect for them because this is so hard, especially when you have to get in there in between the crevices of like the rounded part of the heart. It took forever. And so right now, this lighter looking buttercream is still the same buttercream, but it's being put on top of the cake after it's been refrigerated, and it went so much easier because the buttercream was cold. And I hope you like my montage. It's going to be done really soon, and yeah, so proud of this heart. Ta-da! Okay. At this point, this was like 3:30 a.m. and I thought, I've already made it this far. I made a heart. Might as well try the viral vintage heart trend, right? Think it turned out okay. Not the best again. I am not a professional cake decorator. I'm not a baker. I am a chef. And though we get training in sweets and pastry, we don't really get training on like the artistic side. So I pulled out whatever piping tips I had. I don't even know what these names are. I just wanted it to look pretty. And I think I did a pretty good job. I'm going to speed things up now. This is yet another little montage I created just because I'm so proud of this cake. Enjoy! Things were going pretty well until I got to the end, because right here I noticed that section was not even, so I removed it and repiped it. And then I decided, why not add some extra frill? Try to make it as even as possible and as level as possible, but it was really hard, I'm not gonna lie. And by 5 a.m., I had a cake. I shoved this into the fridge, and then the next day I was like, no, it's too bare, it needs something on the top, so I decided to pipe out the age that my friend is turning, and she's turning 25. I didn't want to mess up the face of the cake because of all the intricate piping, so I decided to just pipe out the numbers 2 and 5, throw it in the freezer. That way the buttercream is completely firm, and then I just removed it later and put it back on top right before we sang happy birthday. Last weekend was also super hot, and buttercream comes to room temperature so fast when it's like a really thin layer. So it worked out really well. And here we go, I'm putting the 2 and the 5 on top of the cake. And they're ready! My mom's lighting the candles and we're about to sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mia. Happy birthday to you. Ready? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for more recipes. Bye!